It is about this time that you should be getting your YouTube notification saying we are live. Wednesday, 25th, I believe, if memory serves me correct, of October. Thank you very much for tuning in. It is Netrunner time, boys. What's going on, fellas?
Not much, man. Just chilling.
I'm doing well, man. I feel good. I feel pretty. I feel enlightened. You know, looking at New Core 2, I'm enthusiastic still. My brain's ready to talk about.
Yeah, I thought you were going a different way and was gonna talk about all that yoga and stretching you're doing to make yourself enlightened.
So I was. Well, you actually interrupted me when you contacted me. I was in Twisting Half Moon, but it's fine. I'm not gonna judge you. I forgive you. I know that we have a show to do. So
it happens, man. It happens. Got to get out of that space.
Yeah,
I've been lying in my psychic twin pool, just kind of communing with my fellow, psychic twins, like you do.
Psychic twins.
All right. Well, first off the bat, bad publicity happens because of viewers and listeners like yourself. If you guys would like to help support us so we can do all the things that we do, very much appreciate it. There's a couple ways to do that. You can either help us out on Patreon. You can, if you're watching on the YouTube Gaming, there is the sponsorship button now down there, or you can make sure you just like and subscribe to this video.
Like and subscribe. Like it.
Hey.
The liking button.
Meme train keeps it rolling.
You can hit that liking button. So today's topic is Jinteki revised core, coming into, I believe, one of the easier revised core factions to discuss and talk about. So I believe that intro was long enough, so everyone's starting to roll in. Let's cut right into it. Jinteki revised core. First up, we have on the docket is the outs, right? Is that what we discussed?
Yeah, let's do that. I think I agree with you that this is a pretty cut and dry case of bad cards being shunted out and great cards being saved and put back in. I think that's going to be the theme of the night. And to make that point clear, let's go over some of the cards that were removed from the faction, never to be spoken of again. Yeah. So the list of cards out of Jinteki Core set include Zaibatsu Loyalty, Cell Portal, Chum, Data Mine, Precognition, and ol' Akitaro Watanabe. What a list. Guys, as a poll, when was the last time you saw any one of the cards I just mentioned played in any deck?
Okay, so the only one that I can speak to is Data Mine.
Okay, go ahead.
When I start to look at net damage decks, this kind of one of the ones that I like to look at as that weird one-off trap, or just to have something in there as a finisher, like a piece of ice that I don't res until the right condition comes along. And it kind of sit on the board face down until that. And people are like, oh, is it one of those high cost Jintekis and he just can't afford it right now or do something? So that's kind of it's always been an interesting play from me. And especially when Potential Unleashed came out, I kind of tried to around some decks with Data Mine. And there was a couple other decks out there and people... I forget who it was in particular, but I believe someone in the UK really came out with a deck. I don't know if it was Chris that came out with or was experimenting during the Potential Unleashed early stages with just a high, bang, bang, bang net damage deck to try and just mill through cards as quickly as possible. So that's kind of the only time I've ever really seen any of these kind of cards.
Yeah.
I would say everything else. It would be the last time before that is very early in the game when we only have, say, like a What Lies and Trace Amount, kind of like the first 2 packs coming through, because we did, I played in an area where a lot of people played Jinteki, so it's like some people wanted to get value out of their 3 cores, and Zaibatsu loyalty was a thing for a little bit. People thought that they could pop people with chum, but and that was all like way early before things kind of got burned out for those cards, and they realized that just garbage.
Yeah, I agree. For a majority of these cards, the game has just kind of moved beyond them and matured in a lot of ways in terms of options for carrying out effects like these. And some of them just never really got played because they fit in situations that never really occurred. Like Zaibatsu Loyalty is a counter to a mechanic that's barely ever used, right? That very few runner decks are bothering to expose things. And so Zaibatsu Loyalty is the silver bullet to a silver bullet strategy that never worked. And it also, as I believe Damon mentioned on the cast a couple of weeks ago, filled a weird kind of timing space, right? Like, it had some unclear mechanics that were never really used again and were better off just kind of left in the dust. So that's definitely a weird one that I agree. That and Chum are cases of things I saw very early on and then never again.
Yeah, and I mean, precog, like, just I didn't see anyone ever play that. So
yeah, it's crazy. They recently, not recently, but in the last couple cycles, released Psychokinesis, if you can remember that card, right? Which had a kind of similar effect, right? Allowed you to look at the top 5 cards and then get an install out of it. And that card, I think, maybe caught a couple people's interest for a little while, but now I have basically never seen as well. So that whole space of looking at the top of your deck without doing much draw or anything beyond that, I mean, maybe some people had some mutate dreams. Who knows? But yeah, that's another one, precog, that just it never made the cut.
I think if you're going to sit down and design a game, though, I think that's a good mechanic to have. But the problem is I just think it was executed in the wrong way. And what I mean by that is that if you look at what the corporation needs to do, it just didn't fit into I want to spend one of my 3 actions on my turn to look at the cards. Right? Like it was such like a tempo kill.
Right. Now, if you want an example of a card that allows you to rearrange cards off of your deck, look no further than the recently revealed Bacterial Programming, right? The 5 advancement 3-point Jinteki agenda from the upcoming cycle that lets you move cards from HQ to the top of R&D, trash some, rearrange the rest. Like, that is an amazing degree of control over the top of R&D. And that effect, I think, finally reaches a power level that's worth considering for manipulating the top of R&D. So I agree. I think just on its own, precognition was not potent enough in that space.
So jumping in also, Zaibatsu Loyalty definitely was a card that I think was created in mind, long, because it was a core set card. So it was created way before they knew the implications of expose and like how much it would be impactful in the game. And of course now we know it's not very. It seems like expose now is very much a ability that is sort of this like padded extra, right? To me, it's akin to Link, where your game is necessarily made or broken by having exposed abilities, but having it is just a little icing that you put on a card to help it out a little bit. Cell Portal, I don't think was ever truly playable, and then Chum was used for a while, but if you recall, and we're talking like a long time ago, Chum was back when Jessica Kapinski won in 2013 at Nationals, where everybody was doing Catman decks. And, at that time, that was when you had Wall of Static, you had Bastion, you had Chum, and Eli. And what everyone was doing was they were using every efficient 4-strength but cheaply, cheap to res ice they could. And so Chum just really fit well, in that category because it was very inexpensive. So, I don't know, like
You know what? As a side note, what I like about you, Hollis, is you're like the Wikipedia of who won, where, and with what deck. You and Zach have it. Like you guys name a tournament, and you're like, oh yeah, didn't so and so win it with this deck in the in the third round?
Well, I briefly commenting on that. Part of that was when I was starting Netrunner. It was during February of 2013, and of course the game had just come out of Gen Con. So the game had not been out that long, and it just commercially had been released for a little bit. So when it made it all the way to Worlds, that was when I was really, really hungry for content, when I was listening to everybody. And I will never forget, I was sitting with my friend Adam Perry, and I wasn't at Gen Con, but someone had said, dude, a Shaper deck won Worlds. And Adam and I were like, okay, we got to figure out what it is because we're not there, or at Gen Con, excuse me. And we were like, we're not at Gen Con. No one knows what this deck is. So we go through BGG forums, and there's a post that says Atman plus Kate equals Catman. And we looked at the list and we're like, wait a minute. This card at 0 is amazing with Data Sucker, and at 4 it's amazing. This has got to be the deck. And then eventually the dude comments on that same thread like an hour later. He's like, hey guys, I just won Gen Con. And we were like, we found it. We knew ahead of time.
Nice.
So I don't know. Like I love that. I love knowing those decks. It's always really fun to me. Sorry. It's just a thing. I love doing that.
That's great. No, that's good. I'm glad we've got this historical view on the game to otherwise give some light to cards that I think for modern players, you don't even look twice at some of these. So they were once maybe a twinkle in someone's eye, but unfortunately they've been swept to the history books. So that's all I gotta say on these swapped out cards. I think it's pretty clear there are much better substitutes from the Genesis and Spin Cycles.
Yeah. Do you think that? Well, I was gonna just add this in here. I think that we can use one of these cards especially, which is Akitaro Watanabe, as a clear example of like I think how FFG sort of learned, but also in a negative way. So Akitaro of course reduced the res cost of ice protecting the server, which seems really, really good, right? But then later, as time went on, we got Mamba Temple, which is a similar card effect, but a much like power boosted form that I think ultimately ended up being negative. And so I would like to draw this sort of like line here, like card design in general, or in like development of cards, like seems very complex in such that you have a card like Akitaro Watanabe, which seems like, okay, sure, I can see how that's underpowered. And then you have another card like Mamba Temple, where it's like, okay, this is very strong. And they're quite similar. Like, granted, the actual text of them is different, but like in concept, they're similar. And it's amazing how they're similar ideas, but like one is clearly way more powerful than the other. It's insane. So, fragile card design, yeah.
Good point.
Anyway,
yeah.
Sorry.
Speaking of making ice cheaper.
No, yeah, you're right.
Go on.
Yeah, so like in that same vein, we also had a lot of cards that basically were kept in that, I guess after all this, everything rotates out.
You know what though? Before we go into the I'll say just as a looking forward, the one of these ones that I'm a little curious of why they rotated out Zaibatsu loyalty when it seems like Expose they're kind of like sprinkling back. So it's like, did they want, like, are we going to see that trend continue? And now because Expose was so underpowered, they sweep this, Zaibatsu away to have like actually no way to counter it if it becomes, if we get more into this trap Expose style of game. So it is interesting to see as Expose is I don't want to say making a comeback, but if you're reviewing cards, you've read Expose on a couple more newer cards than normal. So interesting.
Fair point.
Thank you.
Yeah.
No, I think you're right.
Cool.
You may proceed.
Oh, no, we're good. Well, so those are all the cards basically that we covered that are out. Of course, with rotation happening, a lot of cards from all the cards from the first and second cycles are going to be leaving, but a few remain. They will stand the test of time for the time being, and those cards are, and I'll just list them off real quickly, are Brain Trust, Ronin, Himitsu Bako, Swordsman, Whirlpool, Yagura, Celebrity Gift, Trick of Light, and Hokusai Grid. So I'm gonna just ask. I'm gonna go to you, Alec, right from the start.
Yeah, man. Let's do it.
Tell me which card on this list stands out to you as far as one that stays in.
Ooh. It's a close one. There are a couple of them that are really top contenders. I think the clearest answer in my mind is Celebrity Gift.
For what was that? I zoned out.
The card that stands out the most as like...
Oh, the include?
That are included. Yeah. I think Celebrity Gift, it really answers one of the major complaints I think Jinteki players have in general, and specifically in the core set, and that's economy, right? To not have good economy in faction, it can be really crushing to a lot of these trap-based decks that need that little bit of economy to get there.
Jinteki was balls at economy before Celebrity Gift came out.
Right, yeah. I think it was huge when it was released. I think it's still relevant today. I see it splashed out of Jinteki all the time. It shows up in other factions constantly, right? Because it's a really powerful card. And it's a really brilliant design trade-off between information and value. And so I think it's huge that it's still in the game. So that would be my number one pick. Although there are a couple really good ones I'm sure we'll discuss. But there you go. Gift. It's big money.
Big money, no whammy, no whammy.
No whammy, no whammy.
Nah.
How about you, Hollis?
I'm gonna throw it to Jameson. I'm gonna redirect it off of me back to Jameson.
So to me, there's a couple ones that stand out to me, and I can run the list. Like I'm looking at it. What is it? I mean, maybe the only one that doesn't directly stand. Oh, so the only two. I'm not even judging Brain Trust.
We could talk about Brain Trust.
Okay, you want to start at the agenda? I don't think that was the agenda to save.
That's fair. I do want to spend 2 seconds just kind of giving a little bit of a shout out to Brain Trust. I think it's a worthy include because it sticks in the 3-2 cycle that we established, that we pointed out in previous weeks, right? That every faction in the core set got a 3-2. I think it's super cool that Brain Trust is a fast advance piece, right? Blank text, whatever, trick of light, get it out there, cool 2 points. But honestly, I respect the design of Brain Trust because it does present Jinteki players a pretty decent reason to bluff it as a trap, right? If you can get that thing over advanced early enough. Now, granted, I've never seen it done, so this is speaking very optimistically. I understand, but you get that little discount on your ice. For all those people complaining about economy, there's your economy. It's sitting on Brain Trust. So I don't know. I think it's a cool card. I wish it saw more advanced play, but it's a shame, it doesn't get advanced more often. But I'm glad it exists.
So, to me, Brain Trust, I know and I acknowledge that it is the 3-2 for Jinteki, and we probably won't see a lot of 3-2s and blah 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 blah. But I mean, you don't have to make everything fair and square. Like, everybody doesn't need a participation prize. We don't. Everyone doesn't need a trophy to go home with.
I'm a millennial, by the way, so I may disagree. But continue, please continue.
Brain trust, go. Unorthodox prediction, that's obviously not even in contention. To me, I think it comes down to two interesting cards that were in Jinteki, which is Fetal and Clone Retirement. I really liked Clone Retirement as having that synergy with Personal Evolution, with these 1,000 cut decks. And I even used it last year, as a great way to score out. I mean, there's nothing better than scoring Clone Retirement turn 1 against Val. Right? Like, this card, and I've said it before, was one of the best ways to clear bad publicity. This card is one of the best ways to counter currents. Like, I didn't need to run a current in my deck to replace the existing current on the table. I just score a Clone Retirement. I really liked Clone Retirement. Now, the other flip side of the coin to that is we lost Fetal AI. This card was, bread and butter Jinteki. It's been around since Trace Amount. It's got history. Now, that being said, I'm okay that it's gone, because we have the protocol, taking kind of its place, and maybe sharing too much of the same mechanics. But Fetal was really cool, and I knew that it had to rotate out because it was, in the first 2 cycles and stuff. But if you're saving cards, and out of the 2, I think I would have rather taken Clone Retirement over Brain Trust, and out of the, Fetal Clone Retirement. Playing the dang 2-0.
I think that's a fair point.
I do.
And I think it's reasonable. I think the other benefit of Brain Trust, which I really appreciate, is the philotic combination. That's pretty nice. If it gets stolen, it's a shame because it punishes you, but at least it's a tiny agenda that sits in the runner score area. So that's another benefit. I think there's a trade-off there, right? Sweet ability versus the consistency of the design of the core set. I don't know. I think both play into a fast advance kind of style. Harmony Medtech, for example, I think leans on Brain Trust a lot. But, I think that's just one of those decisions that went into balancing the different factions.
Yeah, and just looking at some of the chat stuff here with Spags making some good points too. I mean, yeah, he said I can just play the the 2-0. I do like the 2-0 as well. So there is conflicting things between that and Clone. And he just says like he thinks that Fetal is very quintessential here, and nothing felt better than a runner hitting Fetal on 0 or 1 credits. It was those were the days.
Yeah that's pretty funny.
You are right.
It's good. So maybe there are little times when Scott is wrong. So maybe he is right and Fetal should be saved, but I'm just partial to Clone Retirement.
Fair enough.
It's important. I mean, something that I noticed, at least from a comment here that I saw in chat, and I cannot find the person's name. I thought I saw it a second ago. I'll reference him later if it comes up. But sorry, FFS No Names Left. Sorry, FF No Names Left. Sorry, I guess right. He mentioned that he's very happy that Swordsman remained, and I could not agree more. Like knowing AI in this game are very interesting, right? Because I think it's established now that AI generally break any piece of ice, but their cost of which the cost you have to pay to up their strength or break a subroutine is a bit non-conventional. So, and we've seen this from all the way back from Crypsis going into Darwin, weird, Overmind, weird, Faust, hey, weird, and then what's the turtle?
Yeah, Amakua.
Amakua, right? And so, and like that's an amazing thing for them is like they can break any piece of ice. So, if as more cards come out, they will lend themselves very much to having this sort of efficient strategy around them. Sometimes we saw, and this was in the case of Faust, this was an issue. I'm happy Swordsman remains because it keeps that in check. It gives us a one influence option on the corporation side, so that if we feel like AIs are running rampant, and this is a particular card type that a lot of runners are going to initially as their first initial breaker, we can say, okay, well, there's a defense against that. You're going to get a gear check, so you got to find something to break the swordsman, or in most cases, you can't even. It won't matter. It'll trash an AI anyway, right? Mm-hmm. So I liked that remain. Thank goodness that remain. Well done.
Completely agree.
I'm surprised you didn't give Eater the shout out there in the AI.
Oh yeah, Eater. Yeah, that. Yeah.
I mean, that was a thing, too. Man. That was a thing.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. Right. Just all these replaced effects. Yeah. No, Eater's definitely on the list of things I'm happy Swordsman exists for.
Yeah.
The one that there's two that kind of puzzle me because I haven't seen. One of them I rarely ever saw play in the more recent part of the game, and the other one I have not seen play ever. The first one I want to mention is Hokusai Grid. So that remains, and I think it remains only as a means to Jeff Hollis, if you guys remember him back in the day. Jeff Hollis wrote an article, here's part of that history lesson, called My Secret Love Affair with Jinteki. And that was in that instance, back when everyone was still on the BTG forums, he made a comment after playing a lot of Octagon games as Jinteki that it's definitely a faction that lends itself well to basically causing the runner to lose tempo. And when the runner is losing tempo and they have to decide between, do I draw cards here? Do I make a run here? That means that it gives Jinteki that unique window. Now, of course, we know that in Netrunner, in general, creating a window to score or making the runner lose tempo in general is a good thing for any faction. But he's sort of go ahead.
No, to me, this needed to be there.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, right. Well, I feel that, and I think that piggybacking off what I mentioned about Jeff Hollis, that's exactly why. I think Hokusai lends itself very well to that concept of here's a little thump. I'm gonna thump you for one, and then you took one from this ice you try to break, and then you hit a snare. So you took 5 damage, 4 damage here. You can recover. I'm not going to kill you, but I know you're going to need a turn to recover, or you risk a huge mistake from a game loss. So,
and it was costed so well.
Right, it's pretty fair. I think it's pretty fair. Yeah,
right
for sure
for the 4 trash.
Yeah.
Yes.
Man, I still think Hokusai Grid is a relevant card. I see it every so often nowadays. I think in particular, as Joshua points out in the chat, in combination with Obokata Protocol, you get a Ben Musashi in there. Maybe you're lucky enough to have a data loop on top of that. That's basically an unstealable agenda. And Hokusai is part of that potential combination of cards that makes these agendas so taxing to steal. So I think it's a really solid piece, and I think it really lends itself well to a lot of these potent net damage identities like PE and personal or potential unleashed and Chronos Protocol. I think all highly benefit from Hokusai still being in the game.
I think it's phenomenal. I mean, if I'm playing, majority of the time, I playing these tricky PE decks, that probably most people have come to know me for. Hokusai is there 100% of the time. You can don't expect to not see that against me. Bread and butter staple Jinteki needed to save. Like I was saying, there's only 2 weird cards for me in this list, and that was Brain Trust. We talked about that in the agendas, and Whirlpool. But I think Whirlpool was maybe only some kind of, egg infusion-y combo for something in there, right? But
it feels like. Oh no! Please, I'm sorry. Continue.
Yeah, no, I say everything else needed to be there, and I was kind of hurt that some of that was rotating out. Trick of Light, Celebrity Gift, Yagura, Swordsman, even to have that cheap stop with the Baku, Jinteki needed that for cost effective early on and things, and then obviously like you want to talk about deadly, you got we saved Ronin. I mean. The
Huge.
Jinteki player in me loves that Ronin was saved because that's a card that forces face check. But the overall Netrunner player in me, what do you got, a Ronin t-shirt on or something?
Whoa.
Show right now. But what is that, Gryffindor? Is that Harry Potter?
Accurate. Yes, it's Harry Potter. Yeah.
Nice. But
Gotta represent.
But the overall Netrunner player in me kind of wishes that like some of these cards were rotated out, like Ronin, Celebrity Gift or Swordsman. Like I'm happy they're saved for the abilities they do, but I kind of wish we just had like the full rotation happen. These cards go, and we get put into another mind think on building Jinteki decks and using the new resources that are coming. Like, not to say that some of these, you can't transfer Swordsman's ability to another version of said Swordsman or some kind of other style, but if they're not going to do that, okay, save them. But I'm happy they're there.
Yeah, I think that's a great point. I think a lot of these cards really do feel like staples of the faction, and I think were they to be lost, you definitely lose a core part of the set of synergies that exist within that form of Jinteki. Now, they didn't get everything, right? They didn't save every still viable card, like the agendas you mentioned, or Shock, or Caprice Nisei, right? These really quintessential Jinteki cards. But they got a lot of the good ones. And I think that keeps the faction really viable because they can fall back on the good stuff that they know works. And that's what pretty much all of this stuff that they kept is good stuff.
Echo?
No, I agree. I feel like the majority of the things that remain, that stayed in the game for Jinteki are quite good. There's a few exceptions, but I feel like they appeal to those Timmy or Johnny players, like the players that want to have the really big, like, unexpected combos, or have the unique strategy that no one's really, no one's played about or thought about for a while. It's good to have those cards, and then on top of that, you guys listed them off: Yagura, Ronin, Hokusai Grid, Himitsu Baku, Swordsman, Trick of Light. All of these cards are good. Celebrity Gift, they're all good. They're all cards I think that you can reasonably find a way to splash in depending on the Jinteki deck, and they should stay.
So
for sure.
We could probably have this part of the discussion after, but I just feel like it's leading in so nicely. And with some conversation in the chat there, Joshua saying Jinteki was the best redo in Core 2. I think Jinteki, like, if you look at the old core box versus the new core box, it's so night and day. Like, ridiculous. And
yes.
It almost makes me think right now, like, if there was a core only tournament, I mean, is Jinteki the most powerful faction in this rebuild?
I think that's unquestionably true, at least on the corp side. PE as an identity and the cards that you get out of this core set are still used to this day, right? That I'm still playing against PE decks that are running these cards. In fact, I would wager with you for a new player, if you were to get a core set and one of the deluxe boxes and bring that corp deck to a tournament, I think a personal evolution deck, core set plus honor and profit, you've got a remarkably up-to-date and viable deck compared to any of the other core set IDs, right? I think PE is at the top of that list coming out of the core.
Well said. Yeah, and that's where, just because I was looking at it as well, right? Like, you we haven't got there yet, but like you neutered NBN, with pulling away their fast advance tricks from the core. Byroid got pretty much neutered with the ID change. So that's coming already, building out from behind a handicap. I don't think, as much as Wayland core pieces were saved to keep theme and to keep the flow throughout, I don't think it stands alone in a core. I think it's trying too hard to basically kill, and you can just work around that because it's all on, like, what's coming. They're gonna either try and do the punitive on you and whatnots. But I think with Jinteki, the trap effects and the mind games that are now set up from the core are just ridiculous. I can't see Jinteki not core only doing phenomenal.
And I think that played out at the first Worlds, right? Correct me if I'm wrong, but Personal Evolution took that very first Worlds tournament, and I think it was because the old adage back in the day was you're hitting them in their most vulnerable part, runner-wise, which is their card economy. You're sniping those cards out of the hand, and you're denying them powerful pieces, and it can really slow a runner down and force them to question to what degree they want to attack into the corporation. It's huge. It's really good.
Yeah, and I think the chat is echoing a lot of what we're saying here too. Scott said that he built a one core, one deluxe, one pack tenon, and it was pretty slick. It's kind of holding his own.
Yeah, I believe it.
And there is some people saying that didn't Wayland win the first Worlds?
Oh, maybe I'm wrong on that. I wasn't around in the game at the time. I just seem to remember Jinteki was in the conversation very early in the game for that reason, but I could be wrong.
Yeah, I think Wayland.
We can ask Hollis, the Wikipedia.
Yeah.
If we're talking first, that's
okay.
A spider thing.
This is my new home assistant. Watch this. Okay, Hollis, who won Worlds 2012 and with what deck?
There you go.
Jameson, I believe that was Jeremy Zorn. No,
Nice.
No, it was Jeremy Zorn. But I got to be honest about this. I don't know what corp he was running actually. Huh. Remember, like for that particular event, the game had just released and it wasn't available to everyone. That was before I had even started playing. So unfortunately, that would require someone who has an even better history lesson than I do about Netrunner. And I don't know.
Oh, man. Anyway,
so I don't know.
It's not important, but there you go. Point stands.
Yeah.
Cool.
Do you have anything else there, buddy?
I think let's round out the faction. Let's talk about the whole shebang, right?
What was kept top down? Like we said, everything there needed to be kept. Personal evolution needed to be kept. That can never leave the game, right? So then you have Nisei, Junebug, Snare, Neural Katana, Wall of Thorns, Neural EMP. Boom, 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 boom.
Damn.
Full dynamite from top to finish, right?
It's a good list.
Yep. Yeah, man.
Yeah. Pretty amazing. Yeah, I agree on the point of PE, right? And I think even more so than several months ago, PE is still in the conversation, especially now that film critic, and employee strike have now been restricted, right? Now you can't fully counter this identity. You're going to have to deal with it if you're playing against it, and it's going to tax you out. It's still solid.
Yeah, this is a great core. This is a great foundation for any new player coming into the game with Jinteki. Did you guys have anything that was to talk about what was kept?
Well, me personally,
like issues. You got some shoes, Hollis?
I got shoes, bro. I got shoes.
You got some shoes with this?
Like, to me, one card that stands out is Snare, right? Like, I think that we know that on the Wayland front, Scorched Earth got the boot, and they had that replaced with Boom. So that's their new primary source of meat damage, I believe. But having Snare still being in the game does a lot of things. Like, it's not even just that what it does for Jinteki; it's what it does for the whole game. Because now you treat snares like nails in the road when you're driving your car. Like, there could be there's a snare anywhere. Like, it is like you could be running against NBA and be like, what does this NBA garbage have? Like, I know they don't have like XYZ cards anymore. Clearly NBA is not worth playing. So I'm just gonna run this cute snare. Okay, well, okay, you got me. And I'm tagged. Okay, you got me. Okay. Like, I like that snare remains in the game. It's a card that makes running and accessing dangerous. And that's a good thing. You want the runner, whenever they access cards, to be a potentially dangerous affair. I'm fine with this. I'm happy this remained. I'm so happy this remained.
I totally agree. I think it's great. And again, with the onset of the restricted list, right? You've got the tier system removed, so people getting all their influence back that they used to spend on stuff. I've seen HB decks in the last couple of weeks where I'm playing against HB. I hit a snare. I go to the HP player, what are you doing, man? He's like, I got influence to spend, right? I mean, might as well throw in some snares.
You might as well.
It could win games, right? It's totally taxing, and it's really great card.
And you know what I like about Snare as well is that it teaches you an important lesson in Netrunner about reading the whole card. There are many, many times when I've seen people forget that it gives the runner a tag. So anybody tuning in new, careful about this. Clear them tags, man.
Pro tip: unless you've got a good reason, don't be running last click, because a last click run can spell disaster.
Yeah. The other card that came to mind to me, as far as like what was the same, one of my favorite agendas in the game, Nisei Mark II.
Oh, so dangerous. Oh.
Damn.
Yes. I want you to know that like history has scarred me because that agenda has scarred my life. If I play against a player and they're like install advanced ones, like install gaining credit advanced ones, I'm like, oh no. like I'm terrified. I'm like, oh no, Nisei? No, I can't do that. And I that counter on Nisei Mark II is amazing, right? You can use it at any time. It just ends the run. So your opponent does a deep data mining. They do a Maker's Eye or anything like that. Excuse me. And they're going to look at 3 cards, 4 cards, 5 cards. Doesn't really matter. You can just say, you know what? Go ahead and pay for this first ice. All right, that's good. Pay for the second ice. Thank you. And in the run. Thanks.
You know what's an interesting thing about Nisei Mark II? And this is me being a stickler. I'll pick on it a little. I know we joked during the Hasbeiroid one that they revised the core and they have Hudson 1.0, Heimdall 1.0, all that stuff, but they couldn't really bump that up, right? Looking now, what I think would have been really cool, because it's not like they're reusing old cards. Okay, so they're not taking all of the leftover core sets they have, breaking them down. Someone is sorting all of these cards out and putting them in to new boxes. These are reprints. These are all new arts on them and stuff like that. It kind of would have been really cool if because the new art was there, that if it was like Heimdall 1.1, right? Hudson 1.1. So all the Byroids were 0.1. And maybe just, Nisei Mark 3, right? Like just because it's just for that refresh theme. Like Netrunner really has that theme going, and if that kind of, attention to detail right there would have been done, perfect. But it's still good.
It's a cool idea.
Yeah. I got those sometimes.
There you go. Nice. So I got to pitch a question to you guys.
Yeah, man.
Is Nisei Mark II the strongest or best agenda in revised core?
In a vacuum? Like just looking agenda for agenda,
just core
not
set.
Like I'm not able to partner it with anything.
Let's say within the context of the faction, like each core set deck, with all the core set cards.
And the only reason where my mind is going with that is because technically you could, if you're scoring a Beal out off psychographics, like Beal has the potential to just win the game. Can it happen? I don't know if it's more likely or less likely now with what MBN is dealing with. So that's where kind of like I just wanted the facts, man, before I make my choice.
I think it's only truly second to Project Atlas in just core, right? If we're talking just core, two. I think it's only really second to Project Atlas. That's because Atlas is a tutor, and like those are always good. But even if it's not a 3-2. I think Nisei Mark II is very well designed based on the way the game works. That ability is incredibly powerful because it's basically a defensive ability because you can kick the runner out of a run at any time. And then on top of that, it is not so cheap to where it's a 3-2 that's too powerful. It's a 4-2. So it has to sit on that table usually for the 2 turns, right? Without barring you have some sort of additional way to score and advance it really quickly. So I would make it like probably if we're just talking core 2, I'd probably make it like the second best.
That's a good argument.
Yeah, I think it's better than Vitruvius even, because Vitruvius you over advance once, you get 1 counter, right? Otherwise it's just a blank 3-2. But I feel like as like I don't know, a hosted agenda counter versus hosted agenda counter, I think Nisei Mark II is much better.
Like, I think that Nisei is still good, great even. But I feel that a lot of that was based on those days when replicating perfection was was the staple, and it was letting you set up remotes or letting you when you only had to stack your ice in certain on certain servers because it was like a forced run through. It was just such a better ability once they got to the end to pull that, like if they were really looking for your hand or for R&D, and you could start them all back at the beginning again after they've taken the damage or whatever other tomfoolery you have stacked there. I feel that really boosted what Nisei brought to the table. In some of these other Jinteki decks, you're kind of either low ice or spread around, so you're not really seeing that pure punishment of Nisei of having to restart a full run over again. So I don't know, I might have to agree with Hollis that maybe it's really close, but maybe Atlas edges it a little right now.
Yeah, I gotta agree with you guys. I I wanted to ask the provocative question, right? And maybe I was leading you in that direction, but I think you've steered to the correct answer, at least in my eyes. And that, yeah, for me, you know, so when we talked about Project Atlas, I was over the moon, and I think this is a good point to reflect on that, right? I think Project Atlas is so great because it is so fundamental to the success of Wayland as a faction that you have to have a really good reason to not put it in a Wayland deck, because it is just so ubiquitous and it is just so good. And Nisei Mark II, while it's super powerful, I think you're totally right that it fits in certain decks extremely well in Jinteki, but it doesn't fit all of them. And it has lost a little bit of that value over the years, I think, with the shifting of IDs. Now, I don't think it's irrelevant. I think there's a lot of really good IDs that still use it, like Ag Infusion, Polana, perhaps, Tenon, perhaps. There are ways that it can still reach high heights, but I don't know if it's as sort of deck-defining as it once was, like you said, in RP. I think it was so phenomenal there. So, there you go. Still great.
Hollis, over to you. You got some comments? Or whatever the next one was?
Really just looking at things here that remain the same. There's some things I'm very meh about that I think they were just kept just because, to be honest. Like, Neural Katana is good because it, with the change in the meta, I think a lot, you know, if you look back at the last, I'm going to go three years, maybe even 4 years of Netrunner. Mimic was a staple often just because any threat that was 3 or lower, you knew that Mimic could handle it, and for the most part, factions could tutor it very easily and take care of it. And this was so prevalent that, you know, cards like Neural Katana no longer were run, because what's the point? You much rather instead have like a card that has less strength, since Mimic is going to break it anyway, and have multiple subs. So that Mimic pays more. Well, it's interesting now with less tutors, or at the very least, if tutors are there, they're going to be restricted with other cards. So Neural Katana becomes a unique threat again when you.
Your mic cut.
Sorry. The difference is now is that with the changes to the meta, and the changes to the card pool, things like SMC now being on like a restricted list, right? So tutoring is a bit more complicated. If you're going to run naked, cards like Neural Katana may be active a little bit longer than they were before. And I think it's fine to keep that kind of a card. They kept Wall of Thorns. It's not a great barrier breaker, but I think you don't want to remove ice in Jinteki because they have very little good ice. That's kind of why that remained. And then the only card that with any redeeming quality, I think, from among the 3 remaining would be Neural EMP. There it is. They keep it. It's for real. Neural EMP remains. It's so great, right?
I think that card is so fundamental to the net damage plan in so many ways. It's the threat of the kill. If you just want to knock some pieces out of their hand, it's great. I think out of potential Unleashed or Chronos Protocol, you get that added value on top of it. And if a runner sees it in HQ, accesses it, they have to now respect that as a threat. That if you mess up, Neural EMP is going to come to play. And how many do they have in hand? Do they have all 3? Oh, snap.
Yeah. I mean, no, isn't that great? Like, I think that's, we talked earlier about Jinteki always having to, they ping you, right? Here's 1 damage here. You hit a snare, not the worst thing in the world, but it's at the bottom of a Hokusai. Here's another one. And so eventually you're like, okay, well, you're not dead. I may not be killing you, but now, did you run click 2? All right, well, here's something weird that happens. You ran click 2, you had 5 cards in hand, you're going to take 4 points of damage. So now you can only draw up 2 as runner. You can only draw 2 cards. So I'm not going to Neural Imp right here, but I'm going to try to create this window. Let's see how froggy you are. Are you going to go for this agenda right now and take some more net damage? Because the moment you go down low enough, it's Neural EMP time. I just love having that card. It punishes the runner for making mistakes. But on top of that, it also is it's pretty rewarding for you playing to those advantages, playing to where you know that the runner's going to have a great tempo loss, and you're going to keep pushing that, and eventually to the point where now the tempo loss is so good or great enough, you can end the game. I love that. I really like it. It's awesome.
Yeah, I think Neural is one of. You look at depends on how things go. Mark II, could have future potential. Snare definitely. Neural EMP. Those cards I feel can carry you through things. The other ones I feel, even though they can still be used, they can still be good. They're still so fundamental Jinteki, but I believe they needed to be the ones that were picked to stay in a core set. Those are core sets for a reason. Neural Katana, it's not super crazy. It's not super overpowered. So learning and mitigating damage ice, it's a great teacher. Wall of Thorns, for what it does from a barrier, is still great. Like, having a 5 strength barrier out there, but then dealing with the costs and things like that, great teaching tool for new players. And then obviously Project Junebug, you need a trap in Jinteki, and that's the one that's obviously going to be there. That's the go-to. But having that with the Ronin is going to create and teach opportunities and windows about how to set up your traps, how to and teach the runner, that you can't just, like back in the day, it was if they only had Ronin, they'd be putting something down, advance it, and then running it to clear it, because Ronin has to sit on the board. So you're getting that is it a June bug? Am I going to have to draw up and run that bug, or is it a Ronin and I need to run it to clear it now? So you're building that understanding and that foundations to play against Jinteki, let alone you're learning, how to control your poker face and your abilities to be a trap player. So great selections holding in the core.
I think that's a great point, that from a new player perspective, these are really useful cards. On top of that, I want to add, I think it's super cool that Trick of Light is still around, because I think the combination of that and Project Junebug are really exciting for new players as well, to start to recognize, like, oh, I failed this trap, but I've got these advancements now, and I could Trick of Light that onto something else, and I could score agendas. Amazing, right? Super, super cool combo potential, and it's a really tight synergy between all these cards in this deck. It's really good.
Hollis, you good with the sames then?
I'm good.
So saying, it's always interesting here to look at, I think, what was, let go, what is not even mentioned here, and that is, the ID. We look at a dominant, one-time pillar in the Netrunner community, the Colossus that is RP. A totally unique, defining style to play Jinteki, and also the point where Jinteki became competitively viable to be, for the next, I don't even know how long. I mean, still there was still RP decks showing up that were great builds, and making cuts at different tournaments. So I think until the day that it kind of got put out to pasture, RP was amazing, and all those other pieces, right? Like RP came, Celebrity Gift then gave the funding into it. So all that stuff that we've got in the first 2 cycles just fed into this beast. So I'm glad though that it did hit rotation, because now, again, open up new ideas, right? Like we knew it was rotating, so that's the way it it should be. That one shouldn't be saved. I'd like to see new space opened up with the ideas of Jinteki. The big ones though, I think we already talked about the agenda styles and the fetal being removed. The 2-1 clone being neutered off. But you gotta say you can't go anywhere in this episode, and I'm surprised that we've gone on as long as we have without saying Caprice.
It's crazy, man. Caprice has been such a staple of the game to the point where for a while I honestly believed that it was in honor and profit, like that card would be with us for the rest of time. And it was only when I realized, oh wait, it's actually rotating, that you kind of reconceptualize that whole game space of the Glacier plan.
Yep, second cycle double time.
Crazy, yeah. So without Caprice in the game, I think you've got to look to a lot of other options to retain that kind of Glacier taxing style way of scoring that Caprice offered for a long time.
Yeah, I mean, again, I think in the dominating Glacier decks, it stood its test and it had its purpose. With these dominating Glacier decks being moved out now, would it be interesting, or could you make an argument that Caprice didn't need to go? Yeah, 100% for sure. But because it was such a staple, and I mean Ash was kept, that I believe that it's let's rotate it out again. So let's get into a new mindset. Let's find new ways to apply protection and trickery to the game. There was enough arguments behind the losing games on based on a sigh because of this, but yeah, I think that yeah, pretty much, Hollis. Good miming of of probably many final turns around around the world. So I think it needed to go. Let's see what's new. Shock, obviously, again a staple. Probably not a core set style because of its weird triggering and rulings on that ambush. And plus, if it was still in the game, you're really breaking, because of combos that are coming back there. And then the other, kick at the can here is Sundew, right? Like Sundew was again the staple that made PE sing. With PE not being in it, do we need Sundew? Does it have a home in anything else?
Wait, you mean clarify? You mean RP, right? For Sundew?
Yeah, sorry.
Yeah.
Okay, you're good.
Yeah.
I know that I only said it because I know the chat's gonna be like, "What are you saying? Don't you want RP?" Sorry.
Yeah, sorry.
Yeah.
So Sundew being in that Jinteki Glacier, so it was I don't think that assets are going to be as crazy. I think Boggs will do a good job controlling it. But again, okay, let's clear it. It probably doesn't need to be in core set because it's a little, maybe a little more advanced to start out, thinking that style of play and that strategy that you got to warm up to it. So I could see it being removed for that reasons, but.
Yeah, I think if you hand PE to a new player and kind of show them the 3-card Monty, just putting out cards, seeing what the runner runs thing, and then you show them Sundew, and they go, oh, cool, economy, and then you go, well, you got to protect it, because if you don't protect it, then the runner's just going to go trash it, and it will give you money. It really doesn't synergize with that fundamental trap-based or PE-based deck out of the core set. It was so hand in hand with RP that without RP in the game, I agree. Its uses are pretty niche.
Yeah.
There's going to be 5 people that are sad that Snowflake is gone. So I'll mention that. And the last
Someone
one
mentioned Bullfrog.
Yeah, Bullfrog. The last one that is an interesting one. It didn't see a lot of play, but if you could fire an Edge of World, you did a lot of damage.
I've seen it happen.
Yeah, pulling brain damage into Jinteki is just ridiculous. And you see it with the splashing of overriders and stuff like that. But this card was just nuts.
Yeah.
It was again, I don't know if it was balanced well enough. I mean, somebody good can play around one brain. I mean, we saw that with the amount of people that used to play StimHack, right? Brain yourself or damage yourself and stuff like that. Paying 3, I don't have a problem with. This was just having a trash cost of 0 was just so frustrating.
Yeah, it's pretty high variance. When it works, it can be devastating. But yeah, I think you're right. In general, are good players going to go after an unadvanced card in a multi-remote? It's all context dependent, right? Because what Jinteki can do is squeeze you into these have-to-run scenarios. But I think there were enough other pieces already in the core set that I don't know if Edge of World was really like a necessary.
Yeah, no, I agree. It was just kind of a cool because it was a no advanced trap, right?
Yep. Good point.
So it was just another different style of ambush. You guys, Hollis, you got any comments on that suite of stuff that was left? Left on the cutting room floor.
I think it's good that Caprice is gone for the most part. I think that even without Caprice being in the game, Nisei Mark II still has a zone in which it's very useful, because I think if you try your best, especially in the current economy for the runner, to carve out that window, I think that Nisei will actually do a lot for you. And of course Ash remained, and that's still a card that Jinteki can splash and help defend that remote if they really want to. I'm not sad about the majority of the cards that left in Jinteki. I think a lot of them are really, really poor. But I think that so someone made a good point about Shock. Breach Dome. Breach Dome actually might be a pretty good substitution for it. Let's get the card text.
And I think that's why it was pulled out, right? Like just having so much stuff together, it doesn't make any sense, and it just becomes too crazy.
For those of you that don't know, Breach Dome is it's an asset ambush. Res cost 0, trash is 0, influence 2. And it says if Breach Dome is accessed from R&D, the runner must reveal it. When the runner accesses Breach Dome, do 1 meat damage and trash the top card of the stack. So it's basically a Shock on steroids. It's an even better Shock. It's even better. And that's good, right? Like I think that this also does more work because it does a similar amount of work. Instead of discarding cards from the runner's hand, it does it to the deck. And I'm actually
in addition to
the hand. Sorry, yes. In addition to the hand. And I like that very much. It's more powerful Shock. It's exactly what Jinteki as a faction wants. Not only to hurt your the cards in your hand and slow that tempo down, but also try to bring about the end of the game as fast as possible. I really dig it.
Yep. Yeah, I think overall we've been saying, other than maybe 1 or 2 includes that could have gone the other way, I think overall they've done a fabulous job with the cards that are kept in this set. I think it's really good looking.
Yeah.
Looking cool.
Yeah, I agree. And going forward, I think Jinteki's still in a good spot. I'm interested to see where they go. I mean, people were already starting to experiment with more diversity, I would say, in Jinteki. We saw many different styles of builds and experimentation. Even from the fact that Ag Infusion saw its dominance up there. A lot of people, if you just wanted to play again winning style of Jinteki, you played Industrial Genomics. So there was versatility out there, and I believe that versatility will still be there in Jinteki. They have some of the most fun casual IDs in the game. Very interesting to play, and I'm really happy that on the state that they're in.
Mm-hmm. Agreed.
Hollis, you're muted.
They might be winning. That's all I'm saying. They might be winning.
Oh, really?
No. They would, like, as far as like my preference. If I was gonna go just only core, I think I'd play Jinteki. Just because, like, I think especially as a newer player, I want all of it. I want the decent agenda. I want the mind games. I want to know that like every time you make progress, it hurts. I love that. That's my jam. I'm in.
Yeah, yeah. And goodbye replicating perfection. It was nice, but you definitely had your time. Being the juggernaut at the top and being a world champ, have no shame in going to that clone retirement home.
It's all about Yagura now, or not Yagura, excuse me, Ag Infusions. Why did I say Yagura? All about Ag Infusion.
There you go.
That's the new asset Jinteki. Is all
the future. Nice.
The future is now. Any other thoughts then, fellas, on what we're dealing with here?
No, man. I think
it's good stuff.
Yeah.
Awesome. So that pretty much wraps up that. Is there anything else you wanted to get into, Hollis? Do you have a real talk? Or are you saving it, or?
I'm gonna save my real talk for when we're done with core 2.
Okay. Perfect. Because comes in, drops a little teaser, and then leaves like that.
Yeah.
Hey.
Yeah.
Nice.
So that pretty much wraps up the Jinteki series. Guys, thank you very much for tuning in. A small FYI, we do have Worlds coming up. Our content should continue, but one of us is crossing into a new threshold next week. And there's going to be a huge bash in Huntsville for Hollis as he celebrates. Don't hang your head in shame, man.
I'm turning 30.
He says he's getting older, so his party will be more controlled. But I don't know, fella. I hope.
Okay.
I'm optimistic. Let's just say that we'll be able to bring you content next week. But I'm not
optimistic.
I'm not gonna George Foreman guarantee it. I'll tell you that.
Oh wow.
There you go.
Nice.
So if we're not here, Hollis's birthday got out of control.
Okay. I'm gonna quell those rumors right now. It's gonna be very tame. It's gonna be very, very adult. It's not gonna be a crazy birthday at 30 at all. Okay, we're still gonna turn that off. It's gonna be crazy. It's gonna be fantastic. I can't wait.
Keep it tight.
Yeah.
Nice.
So,
yeah.
you can reach out to Hollis if you're in the area. I'm sure he would love, the more the merrier, to get out and celebrate with him and talk Netrunner while he's slamming back booze, because that's the best time you can get Hollis talking about stuff. Alec, you got anything to add there?
Nah, man, it's looking great. I'm happy to wrap up this course set with NBN next time. It's going to be a good little chat, and maybe even we'll get a little talk about Worlds, eh? Talk about what we're looking forward to. It's an exciting time, as Hollis mentioned, for the game, you know? And I think starting next week we'll get some of those little previews of things to come in terms of what people are bringing and what they're going to play and where that game's going. So, pretty exciting.
Yeah, so we'll go in and talk about some Worlds updates. We will move on into our last one, hitting into NBN, and wrap this up, and push past this core. Finally put it to bed with one more episode, because I believe we'll do NBN next time, and we'll also just briefly touch on, because there wasn't much change at all in the neutrals, so those can probably be Lego bricked together. Guys, nice. Thank you very much for joining us. Always love to see the building out the same familiar faces. Thank you for standing with us through all this time. If you're new, welcome. Thank you to our supporters. Thank you to everybody who likes, subscribes, and shares our videos out, finds us on social media, and engages in these discussions with us, because that's what we want it to be, a very interactive discussion of a show. So tell your friends, get out there, pick this core up. Let's keep this thing rolling.
Woo!
Thank you.
Rock on.
Yeah, man. We also have just a shameless plug. Of course, there's a sponsor button in the bottom right-hand corner of your screen where you currently see our faces. Actually, below where you currently see our faces. If you feel like you would like to sponsor and give us a little bit of love, we would appreciate it. There's also a Patreon for A&R Bad Publicity to help us produce the content. It pays for equipment. Jameson's pretty new microphone that he uses to hear his sultry dulcet tones.
Boom, 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 boom.
Thank you guys so much for all the love and support, and we'll see you on next week.
Yeah, man. Have a great night, everybody.
Cool. See ya.
Have a good night.